two before the one. Wisdom is water, I'm the daughter of the cannon fodder. Applied knowledge and insight, a born scholar. Look like a martyr to marauders like Carter. Wise owl slaughter, whack MCs order applauder. Original woman, decipher the womb. Crown of creation, fruit of the planet Earth.
Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wise the Dome TV. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Dennis Ausar Winkler. He's an entrepreneur, psychotherapist, educator, community advocate from Baltimore, Maryland. Today we're going to be talking about some of this identity crisis that we have within our community. Not to make light of it, but it can go to some pretty far out places. And we're going to be discussing some of that now, and what better to have someone who is trained in psychology to have that conversation with. So, Dr. Dennis Ausar Winkler, thank you for coming on. And for the people who may not have seen you or heard of your work, can you just give the people a little bit of a background on, your education and your, I guess, journey into Pan-Africanism as well?
Okay. All right. It's a pleasure again being on, good brother. The honor is mine. I take any invite seriously, and I appreciate it. As some of the speakers back in the day used to say that, when I come before you, I try to bring you something that is significant. And because I don't want to waste your time, I don't want to waste our time, so I take this very seriously. So my background, I would say I have to give all due respect to my biological Baba and Mama, but definitely my biological father for raising me in a very Pan-African. He might even use the terms, but definitely Pan-African or African-centered way. My father's still around. He's still in here in the fight, kicking it, actually literally kicking it, as he practices and teaches martial arts on the bottom level of our facility here.
Wow.
I'm on the third level right now, and this is my office where I do psychotherapy. But nonetheless, I was raised there in that type of household, an African-centered household in Baltimore, in the mean streets or beautiful streets of Baltimore. And during the crack epidemic, I think that's really essential. And what I think is, now from my case study of my own self, is that African-centered Pan-Africanist perspective helped me exist in a way that I was not as touched by those streets, and also rose above the conditions that we found ourselves in. I'm still fighting though, nonetheless. So that is that. I have a long story, but I'll just kind of take it to say, well, my father raised me, and then I joined up with an organization as I became an adult called the African Village and Cultural Center under Dr. Ray Hagins at before they kind of changed some directions and things are kind of slowed down a bit, but nonetheless, they're still good people. I'm still in connect with my brothers and sisters around the country. I became a minister in the African Village and Cultural Center, and I became the international director of operations in the African Village and for the African Village and Cultural Center. I went back to school. And I took it seriously. Like I said, I took it seriously. So I went back to school I was always a business person, but nonetheless, I went back to school to get a degree in administration because I was the director. Was it the national director of administration, something like that? The national director. And pardon me, my mind is a little cloudy today because I'm dealing with some allergies. And sometimes it's not.
That was me. That was me last week.
Yeah,
that was me last week. I get it, brother. I get it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, some people think it's slight. It's a real thing. It gives you some brain. You have to You have to struggle to think clearly at times. But nonetheless, getting back to that, I went back to school. Matter of fact, I went to Sojourner Douglas College. I did go to school, but I returned. I said, you know what? I'm black, so I'm gonna go to a black school. And one of the blackest schools, probably at that time, was Sojourner Douglas College. I mean, it was founded during the Black Power movement during that time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, 1972, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it came up out of that. I went there, and some of us we like we ain't gonna go to that black school, but I went to the black school. I said if I'm black, I gotta go to the black school
Right.
that came through that really was fighting for us and did a phenomenal work. They had campuses across the world, but nonetheless, in that I was they had a beautiful education. It also sharpened my African-centered lens. The school actually came from a African-centered perspective. But I kind of completed my degree in business and administration with an emphasis in business administration. And I only went back to school literally to do clinical work. But because I had been an entrepreneur for so long, and I had been very successful as an entrepreneur, as not a capitalist, but an entrepreneur trying to help my people, and I found out some real life lessons in that struggle. That money ain't gonna change it. That's what I did find out.
Yeah. Right.
There's got to be something more than a couple dollars, and it doesn't change people's mentality. And I realized that even though I helped my brothers and sisters make money, it was something bigger than that. Because even when they were making money, they literally were struggling, and they couldn't even payday come. They got nice sized checks, but they started participating in all types of activities that didn't land them at work the next day. And but nonetheless, and they made good money, but they couldn't keep it consistent. So I realized the struggle. I'm in my early 20s, really starting. Really big business. Really doing good in my early 20s. Making bank or whatever they call it. But the thing is, those brothers and sisters, even they actually were making money as well, but they couldn't keep it consistent. They didn't change the conditions of our people. That's all I want. I want to say that. So I went back. I went back to school again because I was on and off because I was doing good. I didn't really need. If you was going to school to make money, you was already making money, more money than you would have made if you going to school, type of thing. But nonetheless, I went back to school after becoming a minister at the African Village and Cultural Center. To sharpen my skills, one, administratively, but then two, I wanted to deal with our people from a psychological perspective. And that psychological perspective, so hence I went through Sojourner Douglas, and I got some real life credit, and also completed the coursework. But then I went from the black school to the Jesuit institution. Don't hold that against me.
No, it's all
Loyola University, which actually had a phenomenal clinical mental health counseling program. So I got an MS in clinical mental health counseling. From there, I went on to another school called Waynesburg University, which is in Southwest Pennsylvania, and and completed my PhD in counsel education supervision. My dissertation was entitled Measuring the Relationship of Race-Based Trauma, Racial Identity, and Spirituality. And that kind of, I could talk for days, but that's kind of brings us forward in all of the...
No, I was going to say I think that's the perfect segue about what we're even talking about here is the issues that we are having as African people with identity. Can you talk about your dissertation some, though? I haven't read it yet, and I would love to read it. But I think that definitely applies to kind of what we are seeing now in this push for people to want to detach themselves from their African identity.
Absolutely.
Well, can you go over some of your just talk a little bit about your dissertation? Again, I would definitely like to read that in the future, but since I haven't, can you kind of give us and the people, just kind of a small overview of the dissertation?
Okay, so what I being in the community, and I'm saying the black community, the quote unquote conscious community or communities. I think we can understand that language. And just being amongst the general black African American and American black community, African black community in America, I realized in all of my just observing the engagement between the different ideological groups, whether that was religious groups, whether that they were political groups, or what have you, we all kind of thought that our way was the way to free black people mentally, physically, materially, or what have you. And I noticed that people tended to hold those stances very like they really drew the lines in the sand, like this is the way.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I always struggled with these hard lines. Because I just thought that those lines, I didn't think that this one group had all the answers or this group had the answers, nor did people like Dr. Naim Akbar and so on and so forth, those who I studied, believe that as well. I remember something Dr. Naim Akbar said some years ago. I don't know when it was. Probably it could have been before I was born. I don't think so, but I was a little boy. And he said that not until we realize that our piece of the pie is just a piece of the pie, that will we really come together and truly liberate ourselves. He says that we think that our piece of the pie is the whole pie. So I saw all these groups taking these hard stances. We got the way. We're going, if you believe this way, then you're a slave. If you believe this way, we got self-hate. We got all this type of thing going on. So I said, and we had all types of conceptual ideas about what was the best way for the black man, the African in America, what have you. But I wanted to test some of these theories. So again, my dissertation, it was an arduous process to try to figure out how to do that. But nonetheless, I measured utilizing 3 instruments. One instrument is a race-based traumatic stress symptom scale. Mm-hmm. Another instrument called the cross-racial identity scale. And another instrument called the Aspires. It's the assessment of spirituality, religion, various black people to measure these factors or variables. And what I wanted to know is, was there any legitimacy in all the claims that we made, whether spirituality was a protective factor and whether your social political identity made you more or less have self-hatred or miseducation or internalized racism, or more of assimilationist, or more of what they call more of an African-centered, or more of a multiculturalist. And I did that. And one thing I did realize that black people they don't have as much self-hate as we believe they do. But we do have some self-hate. But it's not the most of us. Some of us are miseducated.
Yeah.
Many of us are miseducated. But we still have some semblance of you got something?
No. I was just getting ready to grab my water. No, you're good.
Oh, okay. Okay. We still with that, we still have a major fight before us. And let me just clarify this, in part because these allergies are really kicking me.
Yeah, no problem.
But what I realized in that research, that there is some truth that some religious or mostly spiritual factors do really benefit us as a community. I have realized that there's no more or less symptoms as it pertains to race-based trauma when we consider people's different, let's say, religious backgrounds. But there is more symptoms when we consider certain factors of their political ideologies. And in fact, how that is relevant to this conversation is that certain political ideologies similar to the one that we're going to be speaking about, the ones that we're speaking about today, such as, I'm not sure if you want to go there, but nonetheless, like
Yeah, I don't mind. Mhm.
ADOS or FBA, they they have a certain type of way of looking at the world that actually would be more consistent with race-based trauma.
Mm.
Um, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but please,
Yeah, you did.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
absolutely. And so let's get into it. First, I would like to start by um again, I saw the uh I saw the episode with you and Dr. Mayat, and it was some FBA brothers on there.
mm-hmm,
Um and one it was kind of interesting, like the first 15 minutes, one of the FBA brothers on there, um he began to talk about, I believe, his paternal lineage, and he was going all the way back to, I believe, the 17th century,
mm-hmm,
and saying that, his family has always been here and they're not even genetically African, right?
mm-hmm,
And so we begin to, and then also too, and I'll get into I'll get into more of that in just a second.
mm-hmm,
But I've also seen recently this new push within white nationalist circles of the idea of a heritage American, where they are tracing their family lineages back to the 13 colonies.
mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to pull it up on my screen, but I'm going to read it because I think it kind of goes into the psychology of some of the people that are, you know, adhering to these different ideologies. And this person from ADOS said the following. He said, the American descendants of slavery and white colonial descendants are forever bound by history and blood. There is no need to separate the two. And the context of the tweet was a white woman who is a part of this white nationalist American heritage circle, tracing her family back to, the 13 colonies, had a grandfather, I believe, that fought in the Revolutionary War
Mm-hmm.
type of thing. And then somebody asked, well, what about the people that came to this country on slave ships?
Mm.
And she was like, absolutely, they count too. And then this person here, this ADOS person here, saw that as like some point of unity, right? Where I am, you know, there's no need to separate us. The settler colonial, the descendants of this, founders of this settler colonial project and enslavers, you know, we are the children of those that were enslaved. We are bound together by the same principles in history. And it's just so weird for another African to take that perspective, right? And then at the same time, tell our brothers and sisters who went through the same traumas in the Caribbean and in South America,
Mm-hmm.
that and in Europe, that you gotta, quote unquote, hold your own nuts, and we're delineating from you guys. So not
Mm-hmm.
only are they saying we are delineating from the rest of the African diaspora, but we are attempting to find common ground with our former slave masters.
Mm.
Um, what are your thoughts on that whole idea?
Well, I think from a identity perspective, um, that that literally is more of what you would call, some aspect of that would be like an assimilationist,
Hmm.
and then other aspects of that would be consistent to, let's say, miseducation, also self-hatred, and I'm not sure about anti-white sentiments, but I think that'll be more of like anti-diasporic and continental African sentiments.
Mm-hmm.
I think instead of the hate that's going into towards like what we call whiteness or just white hegemony or white supremacy ideology, they're taking that same anger and hostility and projecting it towards, in fact, African brothers and sisters that are around this globe. So that's one thing I believe. Now, let me see if I can follow the rest of the question. But then, what was this other part of the question?
Yeah, no, just wanted to know what your thoughts on that whole idea of the fact that we have gotten to a point in our identity crisis where um, we are attempting to quote unquote delineate ourselves from the rest of the African diaspora, but also find common ground and assimilate into um, even if they're white nationalists, right? These
Mm-hmm.
American heritage people, even if they're
Mm-hmm.
white nationalists, we are
Mm-hmm.
attempting to find common ground with them and lock arms in some type of weird solidarity with them. In my opinion, it all somewhat reinforcing some master slave dialectic that they have going on, right? But yeah, I just wanted your thoughts and opinion on it.
Yeah, I think that ADOS and FBA are white supremacists
Yeah, me too.
ideologies.
Hmm.
I think that there's many reasons why people would take that route because in their, I think that for them they want to be closest to the master.
Yeah.
And if you're closest to the master means that you might get better treatment.
Hmm.
And they might not see that on a conscious level, but subconsciously I think that is the route. Two, I don't believe, and the ignorance that I find is that they are a lot of those brothers and sisters used to be quote unquote in black movements
Mm.
or Pan-African movements or some type of conscious movement. And I think they just are operating from a traumatized state.
Yes.
In the trauma, when one has been traumatized and they're operating from a traumatized state, which is that anger that I'm talking about, it doesn't allow you to think. It
Hmm.
doesn't allow you to really think on a very let's say very high on a high level. It does
Hmm.
not allow you to even have empathy
Hmm.
because when you're operating from your limbic region and lower, what happens is you're operating for survival, and
Hmm.
you're not able to parse out information. The only thing you can consider is how will I survive.
Mm.
Now, also, I think that the problem I have with some of these brothers and sisters, including some of the brothers and sisters that I know, is that this is not anything that we weren't taught. It's not like our scholars have not taught us that this self-hatred exists. It's not like our because they'll say things like Pan-Africanism and African-centered people believe that Africans and Caribbeans all love us, and we have this one-sided idea of how things look, and we all, we have this romanticization of black love and unity. When in fact, our ancestors and our elders and our elder scholars have taught us that we all we struggle with that self-hatred,
Hmm.
and due to that level of self-hatred, that we need to heal ourselves because we realize even within the community here in Black America or African Americans or whatever you want to call it, that we too struggle with hating ourselves. That is that internalized racism. That is that self hatred. Because and even as my study measured that less of us deal with that on a high level, it's also essential to note that just because many of us don't deal with that on a high level, it doesn't mean that we don't deal with it to some level.
Yeah.
It's not saying it's void and it's totally. We all, to some degree, struggle with that,
Hmm.
and so to me is those brothers and sisters who have become beat up by the society, who have been fighting on the side of black power or whatever you want to call it, but they are fatigued.
Right.
They are dealing with burnout.
Right.
And so now when you deal with burnout, again, when you look at professionals who deal with burnout, they lack empathy. So they lack empathy for why on the other side of the ocean, on the other side of the pond, in the Caribbean and Africa and so forth, how they are also being fed messages
Yes.
that are anti-Black American. Like we have been fed messages that is anything out, anti-Black everywhere.
Yeah.
So they are in a survival state and they cannot reason.
Absolutely. Great analysis. Yeah, I think that one thing that we fail, and especially them, that they failed to address is the effect that our enslavement, colonialism, the state of internal colonialism in America, colonialism abroad, what this has done to the African mind. We've had people like, Bobby E. Wright and Menticide.
Yeah.
We had brothers like Dr. Jacob Carruthers and uh, intellectual warfare, right? And even on a military standpoint, counterinsurgency, which is designed to separate the radical element from the masses,
Yeah.
and by different forms of pacification and concessions, I would say, social programs, things of that nature, right? But saying that to say this, I don't think a lot of them are historically on point enough or well read enough to even understand that dynamic. Because whenever I watched that show with Dr. Mayat, which you and Aunt killed it. But when I watched that show and the brother first starting and he's denying that he's even of African descent, right? And think about the internalized self-hatred to where now you are creating mythical origin stories for yourselves. And like they're not the same movements, but they have some overlap. The ADOS, FBA, and FBA movements with the what I call the pretendian movements, where you have these brothers and sisters who are now saying that they are not of African descent. They are saying that slavery as we know it did not happen. They are saying that they are indigenous to the Americas, and they do so by creating, I guess, fake origin stories, fake myths, fake paperwork, fake documents, the misreading of documents, conspiracy theories about genetic testing, and all of this thing. But the leaps and bounds that they have to go through to even prove that they aren't of African descent should be a clear indication of that person dealing with real mental illness. Am I correct?
And can you state that last part of that question about mental illness?
Yeah, like if you are going so far as to create mythical origin stories about who you are, right? Because you do not want to be considered or connected with anything African. At what point does it become mental illness where, okay, since I don't want to be African, I am going to create a fake origin story to say that I'm indigenous to North America, or I'm really a Hebrew Israelite, or I'm a descendant of, Anunnaki aliens. Like, this is like mental illness, right?
Yeah. Beautifully stated.
I'm just saying, man, shit.
So when we look at people who are traumatized, right? And what I mean by traumatized, people who operate in a constant state of fight and flight, or then some of them freeze, and then some of them faint. And so there's different ways of looking at that. But one thing that you find in people who have not dealt with their trauma is that they fantasize. And they also they do what you call dissociate even. And then also they daydream, and all these different, there's various ways of dissociating. But one way, and even dealing with people on an individual level, I look at the individual and then I cast this a more general level on the group. And so on a individual level, people who struggle with trauma or things they could not deal with, the reality, they learn these at very young ages, and how to really live in fantasy.
Yes.
So that is a skill that is they have honed in from a young age. So even if you give them the information right before them, it doesn't matter. They can read all day.
Yeah. Right.
They can read all day, but because, in fact, one of the things that Dr. Ray Hagins used to speak about is this biblical segmented biblical, how did he used to say it? Segmented biblical attention. And so I take that and further it and say just biblical means, biblios means book in general. So you just basically you segment your attention to all books.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you read a book with right information or correct information, you're going to parse out the information that supports your trauma, your trauma narrative, your story, your confusion. You're not going to pick up the data or the information off the pages that debunks it.
Yes.
You're only going to look for that what supports your fantasy or your fear. The fantasy is to really help you cope with the fear, but the fear, you're the threat. So that's also part of the reason why I did this research, because I realized that too many of us in these spaces are operating in from a traumatized state. And we have to get that white boogeyman off our back, just like they have to get these boogeymen they call the immigrants and the tethers and all that off of their backs. You know, and I do want to bring in a mama, Dr. Joy DeGruy speaks about this idea of racist socialization. I mean, I think most people have read her book, and it's very easy to digest for most people.
Post-traumatic slave syndrome.
Yeah, post-traumatic slave syndrome. And she makes it very digestible when she speaks about this racist socialization. I just wanted to go back.
Yeah, absolutely.
About this racist socialization process, and she even spoke about it. I'm saying Mama Patricia Newton spoke about it. Dr. Cambone has spoke about it. Kobe Cambone and maybe Kamal Cambone. But Kobe Cambone breaks it down in his misorientation. Was it cultural misorientation? I
believe so.
Yeah, he breaks it down. Again, Bobby Wright breaks it down. I just want to say, again, I want to go back and come forward that, to kind of tie it all together, that what you're saying, again, you substantiated that our elders have already warned us against this. These are the people who could not sustain or withstand the pressure. And when you can't withstand the pressure, it means you've become overwhelmed, and that is when you become traumatized. Traumatization occurs not because of an event. It occurs because you became overwhelmed. You felt hopeless. And when you feel hopeless, you have to create a story to protect you. And all traumatized people do this. They create a narrative that is not real. They create a threat that is bigger than life. So what happens if someone got robbed with a man with a beard like you and I, and with similar, I'm looking at you, I kind of say, look, you can be my family a little bit.
Right. Might be cousins. I got cousins in Baltimore.
So if they look like you and I, when they see us walk down the street, what happens is all that comes back up. And you and I are loving brothers. But the thing is, they're not going to see anything loving about that. And another thing that FBA and ADOS and all of them do, they misrepresent data.
Yes.
And they don't pull out the data that supports that it is a bi-directional a confusion that goes on within our communities. I'm gonna break that down on my show pretty soon.
Okay.
It's a bidirectional bidirectional confusion going on within our groups. I'm talking about Black Americans, Africans, or I'm gonna say Black Africans for the sake of the conversation, and Black Caribbeans. But so we all have been again culturally misoriented. We all have been undergone these racist socialization processes, as Dr. Joy DeGruy speaks about. This mental side that Bobby Wright speaks about, Dr. Bobby Wright. So yes, and then coming back forward. Now I did all that, and you were speaking to this. I think okay. So yeah, so this delusion that we live under is a protective factor. It's this hyper state of arousal and this hyper state of alertness. This it creates black and white thinking. It creates a survival narrative. So the narrative that is created again is a narrative that they come in for, as one of my co-hosts when I was on her platform, Sister Queen, they coming for our stuffers. And I don't want them coming for our stuffers, our things. In this case, I don't want you coming for my reparations. And we will misquote anything. Malcolm X said, by any means necessary, I will protect and defend it. It is a narrative, and there's good people over there. And I'm not fighting my brothers and sisters.
Right.
I am fighting the sick ideology that they have adopted due to their duress.
Yes, absolutely, man. That's very well said. For those who don't know, and may not, keep up with some of these things that happen in these YouTube spaces, the show that you were on with Dr. Mayat was also somewhat of them responding to a previous show. I believe that was maybe 2 days before, with Professor James Smalls, and how I guess he was criticized by FBA, and so can you bring people who may, again, because I think it helps with the context, and I also think it helps with people who may not know. I think it helps them to understand that these guys have no shame in coming at our elders and people who have actually done the work, both boots on the ground and intellectual work. James Small, somebody who's been in the movement for decades, somebody who knew Malcolm, somebody who knew the father of the 5%. How easy it is for them to, come at him the way they did. So for those who may not know, can you kind of catch them up to speed on, what the issue they had with Professor James Smalls is, and then after that, what you thought about them coming at Professor James Smalls that way?
Okay, so what I saw, and I'll frame it like this. I just started off like this. What I saw was people who struggle with trauma looking at a video that was circulated over the social media, over various social media platforms, where Dr. Obaba Small was addressing some African brothers and sisters about not uniting in a more unified way, if I can say it like that, with the brothers and sisters in Harlem, due to I guess some government agency coming to close down and check their licenses or something like that about those vending on the streets or something like that. And then the African or Caribbean brothers and sisters, especially African brothers and sisters, not necessarily standing in a unified way with them. And he kind of critiqued them in a very strong way, in a very strong manner. And getting back to how I started, I think that this traumatized or oppositional, defiant type of lens. And what do I mean by that? That a traumatized lens only sees what it wants to see.
Mm-hmm.
And it sees to support what it wants to see, that there's an enemy, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a threat,
Mm-hmm.
and those Africans are a threat. So what they couldn't see is that the nuance in Baba Small.
Mm-hmm.
Now I even had my main man Tad in New York, love the brother.
Mm-hmm.
He put the video out there on his page, and we had major dialogue on his page. And then I think the brother, his cousin Dougie Diamonds,
Mm-hmm.
came on there and started debating with me. And in my analysis of that was, what we're not seeing is that Baba Small is coming from a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
He's saying the same thing, but he's not saying the same thing you said.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to support that video. They wanted that video to support the notion that Baba Small was saying it before they said it.
Mm-hmm.
That Baba Small, go ahead.
Like to give it legitimacy.
Right.
Mm.
Baba Small had been saying that Africans
Don't
and
like
now,
us. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And now that he's flipping on this other, because there was another video too. There was another video where he was with the brother Orena, I think his name is, from Kenya, where Baba Small said he believed that there might be some COINTEL type of behavior or activity going on within these groups. To have us pointing the fingers and fighting against each other. And there was some peculiar situations that happened with him every time he was about to go to Africa to receive an award or finances and things of that nature. And then people would put videos out there. So he kind of responded back out of anger, like, what's happening out here? What's going on? And I have critique of Baba Small myself. But the difference is their critique is not coming from a place that is stable.
Yeah.
You, you know, I've always had critique of my elder and my Baba, and he's been in the center various times. I mean, I've had critique of some of the scholarships at times, you know. But I also realized that man bright.
Yeah. For
You
sure.
know what I'm saying? So I know that even though what I disagree with, where I think he becomes a bit flowery and he uses his creative authorship a bit. I challenge that, not always outwardly, but I would, but it'll be respectful. And
Yeah.
he's the type of elder that would allow that. But in this situation, I want to be clear that he was 100% accurate when he said that he lambasted the brothers and sisters from the African continent that's here in America, and not standing in unity with our brothers and sisters here. What I mean by 100%, let's say accurate, is that he had the right to do that, but
Right.
but his position is coming from a position of unity, like we need to come together.
Yes.
With FBA's position is coming from we need to separate.
Yeah.
And this is what I tried to explain. And my brother Dougie Diamonds was like, "Oh yeah, I get it." So one person can say is up, and one person can say is both of us can say is up, and one mean down and one mean up. And I see that's very elementary.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So basically, I said it like this. I broke it down later to say, well, like a white supremacist can say, and pardon me, we can all debate whether or not we should call black people lazy. But if I was to say, black people, you were lazy, and I wouldn't do that.
Right.
But many of us do. Some of our strongest scholars were like, y'all lazy. You need to get up and do something. But then a white supremacist can say, you're lazy. And they mean that you're inherently lazy,
Yeah.
and that is why they're supposed to rule over you. So
Right.
two people can say the same thing, or two groups of people, organizations, ideological philosophies, or what have you, can say the same exact thing, but mean something totally different on a grander scale. The intent is different.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. The intent is different. I think it's very elementary not to notice or understand that. Baba Small's talking about, if he's calling out some continental Africans that were in New York that were not standing by in solidarity with African Americans or vice versa, however that was going, it's because he's saying we need to be unified, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming at this from a Pan-African perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? That is totally different than calling out um, continental Africans or Caribbean brothers or calling out African Americans
Mm-hmm.
here by saying, see, this is why we should be separated. Because that's what they're doing. They'll take an instance where somebody on Twitter or YouTube or somebody in the street being interviewed. All it takes is one or two continental Africans or one or two Caribbean brothers or Afro Latin brothers. All it takes is one to say, for them to, generalize the whole entire group. They deal with a lot of logical fallacies, but you know, the
Mm-hmm.
way that they generalize others, right,
Mm-hmm.
is very interesting. But because they don't ever apply that same um, generalized thought when it comes to ourselves, because we can point at different parts of our community and say, look, we don't even like each other. Now, I wouldn't do that, right? Because that's irresponsible and it lacks context and nuance of why we are in the condition in which we are in. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that to say that obviously we have issues with each other at times,
Mm-hmm.
and and as irresponsible as it would be for me to say, hey, because African Americans have issues with each other sometimes, that hey, we just don't get along. That would be irresponsible for me to say, and we should, and we should look more into that, right? Or saying that with our brothers on the continent and with our brothers and sisters in um, the diaspora is equally as irresponsible. The interesting part is that they're not seeing those brothers on the continent, those brothers and sisters on the continent, or those brothers and sisters in Latin America, those brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, those brothers and sisters in Europe. They don't see them as their brothers and sisters. They don't see them as their kinfolk, right? They
Mm-hmm.
see them as ops. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Which is very, very strange to me, because I could never look at another black man or another black woman who hasn't harmed me and is not doing anything to harm us as a collective and look at them like they're my op. I think a lot of it goes into them also, again, being pseudo historically and politically, not really understanding how any of this works. It's easy to blame, some black and brown immigrants for our economic condition than it is to blame the capitalists who are laying people off by the thousands. I think we saw in October it was over 100,000 people who had been laid off from their
Mm-hmm.
works, from the jobs, and it's easy for them to point the finger and say, look, immigrants are taking our jobs, instead of reading and studying and understanding how this capitalist society works, right? And how
Mm-hmm.
capitalism will always keep a underclass, how the wealth will be hoarded at the top, how the means of production will be owned by the few. And so, with that said, how does one who has been sucked in by this FBA, ADOS, sickness and pathology, how do they get themselves out of it?
So, oh, okay. So I think there's two things. I
Mm.
think we're going to have to help them.
Yes, right.
And so, I brought Brother Diallo Kenyatta on my
Yes, I saw it. I saw it. Great
platform.
show. Hmm.
Yeah, and I appreciate Brother Diallo. I think he's needed at times. I'm saying he's needed all the time, but sometimes you call on those with a certain type of disposition to
Mm,
clear the way.
hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right,
And I don't think that's the only way. And I
right.
think even in that, Brother Diallo he also articulated that, but people may have misunderstood him because he goes. I know it's going to be an easy conversation for me. Not much of a conversation, but yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I got you.
But that was my intent. So what I mean is, we do need someone to clear the way like that, but we also have to. Okay, what he was saying was like, there's a variety of ways that we need to approach this. We need some people who throw some mud. We need some people who really come from a scholarly perspective. We need some people who can talk it at the pickup game on the court. Like, I think a lot of times what we've done in our righteous Pan-Africanist and African-centered spaces, that sometimes we like, look, man, they mosquitoes. Just leave them alone.
Yeah.
This is online social media stuff, but not realizing most people on social media.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we haven't caught up. But again, so it's two things. There's the trigger, and then there's the trigger, and there's an ideological component that I don't know if we talked about. And one of my ways is really naming the ideology, because they say it's just a lineage claim and all the different talking points.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because let's stay there for a minute. Go ahead and build.
Okay.
No, the reason I'm saying, because that's a cop out for them to. We're just claiming our lineage, acting like there's not a politic behind their movement.
Absolutely, and that's been my major argument, because that and some even Brother Diallo was like, they don't have an ideology. No, I said, Diallo. It's true. No, they have an ideology. And to act as if they don't have an ideology is an issue, and is actually feeding into what they're saying. It doesn't have to be one written down on paper, but it is written down on some of their websites. And then there's a variety of, there's variant ideologies under these movements. But nonetheless, you always have that under ideology. You have those that are more extreme, and you have those who, like, for example, you have those who really practice Christianity and they just love everybody. Christianity is love, and we accept everybody. Then you have those in the middle that, like, most of people, then you have the extreme that are like, look, if you ain't Christian, I'm gonna run you the hell over. And you have this in all types of ideological groups. You have the fundamentalists, and then you have the ones who just say, this is love. And I think some of our brothers and sisters think this is just love.
Right.
And but the problem with the FBA ideology is that the core and the founding principles of it is not love. It's not even enough love there to say it's love. The only love is this love for this subset population of people we call FBAers. And they say it's no ideology, but they can tell you that you're not FBA real quick just because you disagree.
Yeah.
They'll call you a tether, although both my parents and my ancestors have been here. You know what I'm saying? Then they might call me a tether lover because my wife is from Jamaica.
Right.
So, although they say we love, we don't have any problems with the Jamaicans. We don't have any problems with them. We don't have any problems with Africans. Something happened. Can I still hear you?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So I say they act like they don't have an ideology. So some of the things I want to say foremost, that they make this lineage claim, but it's a lineage as moral and political authority. I got some notes here. It says they say who is authentically black or authentically foundational.
Yeah.
They speak to political standing. They speak to who is entitled to reparations and who is not. These are all part of their ideologies, right? So they also there's a rejection of diasporic and Pan-African blackness. So like, even if they can argue that it's not all Caribbean people, it's not all African people, it's those tethers. Can you let me?
Yeah, you good?
Oh, okay. So something's happening in my earphones then, something. Okay. So even if they can argue it's not all Caribbeans and all Africans and so on and so forth, they argue for the most part that they are anti-Pan-Africanists. That is a hard line there.
Yeah.
And there's only a few people who believe that they can be both.
Yeah.
But in reality, you can't be both.
Right.
According to them,
Mm-hmm.
according to their leader that doesn't exist but does exist, the one who actually has the trademark for the FBA,
Mm-hmm.
their leader who they mock and mimic and recite every time in every catechism and every apologetics. All the catechisms come from their leader.
Mm-hmm.
They might make some up that he picks up,
Mm-hmm.
but he picks it up. I mean, he puts it down. He
Oh, it's
tells
definitely
them,
top down.
yeah, absolutely. He tells them who to listen to, who to debate, who not to debate. He tells them, look at the lineage. He said, the lineage, which is some word that they've kind of created, and although I mean they create their own definition of this term. I said that they say lineage so that he doesn't have to say like the organization or
Yeah.
things like that.
Because he wants, so I don't think he wants the responsibility of whenever this thing crashes and burns, right? And I don't think he wants the responsibility of being called the leader of it, because he knows this is nothing that will last. We're not in any times where any sane black man or woman is going to be seeking to integrate into white society, white nationalist circles, and be proud Americans. If anything, I think the world is beginning to see America for what it is, right? An imperialist nation who has exploited the resources of the global South and has become a warmonger. Well, has always been a warmonger, and I think the world sees it for what it is. So, nobody is trying to assimilate and integrate into that. We are trying to prepare ourselves and our community
Right.
for prepare ourselves in our community for a different type of government, a different type of way of living, one that is founded in the self-determination of African people, right? I don't think they care about any type of self-determination. I don't see that type of thing ever being mentioned by them. It's about reparations, about delineating, and about being anti-Pan-African. It's so interesting too because they act as if Pan-Africanism is this one monolithic ideology that is just extremely rigid when it's not. There are different forms of Pan-Africanism. There's Pan-African, there's like straight up Pan-Africanism, there's Pan-African nationalists, there's Pan-African socialists, there's all types of different Pan-African thoughts. As the author of the book, Dr. Hakeem Adi, said in the history of Pan-Africanism, when I believe he was talking about how, when you when you ask somebody to define what Pan-Africanism is, you have to understand that Pan-Africanism is a river with many streams, right? And so if you even ask them, well, define Pan-Africanism for me, I don't have much confidence that they would be able to do so, for one. So I think they're fighting against an ideology that they don't really even understand. They don't understand, because one of the things that they love to say as well, I know you've heard it often, just as probably as much as I've heard it. Pan-Africanism is a one-way street. Only African Americans practice Pan-Africanism, and I guess that kind of leads me to my next point is, I don't think it's a coincidence that we see all of this Pan-African activity going on the continent of Africa, especially in West Africa and the former French colonial West Africa. We see all this Pan-African activity going on while America is experiencing, all of this pushback. Well, African Americans and our ideologies, all of this pushback against Pan-Africanism. I don't think those two. I don't think those two are disconnected. I feel like the threat of Pan-Africanism obviously has always been real, has always been one that the government has taken seriously. Any type of international solidarity that African Americans have with not only the continent of Africa, but with other oppressed groups around the world has always been seen as a threat. So has any ideas of replacing communism with uh, uh, socialist economies or something similar has always been a perceived threat in America. And so, like with that said, I think these people, I think we're going to see 10 years down the line, we're going to find some evidence somewhere that this shit is rooted in, government psyops and counterinsurgency efforts to, again, lead our people away from the only things that can actually liberate us and allow us to begin to manifest our own self-determination.
Yeah. It's interesting that most of my students, I teach um, master's and PhD students, and I was asking one of my PhD students, in the class, interestingly enough, is diversity. And I'm teaching social justice this semester with the same group.
Yep.
Only one of the students at the PhD level had ever heard of FBA.
Mm.
And she said something quite similar to what you said. She gave more years. She said about 30 years.
Yeah.
She said, we're gonna come and find out about 30 years from now. This was like some co-op psyops or what have you. She kind of said something very similar. Now, if I can go, I guess I try to go back and come forward because I don't feel like I actually answered your previous question, and I'll do it succinctly. Again, when it comes to how do we heal, I think that we have to deal with those triggers and realize those triggers and be conscious of those triggers, because in fact, when you're triggered by anything that looks like the threat, we have to have what I would say, we have to have a trauma informed approach at times when we're dealing with our brothers and sisters, because if you come too strong all the time, what's going to happen is they're going to close down, run away, hide, fight. They're going to be in that traumatized cycle. But then I also think that, like what we're doing here, I call this psychosocial cognitive restructuring. So on the individual level, they have something called CBT therapy, right? That's cognitive behavioral therapy. I think that we need some global, at least national or at least online FBA psychosocial cognitive restructuring going on.
FBA
so we have
rehab.
Absolutely. So we have to really, and it's a process. So you can't just tell a person, well, that's not true, or okay, so have them do some reality testing. You have to continuously do it, like any form of therapy. So it's a perpetual, ongoing process. That's why I kind of said to you on one of your posts is we got to continue to do this, even if we don't have to come at them, we don't have to debate them. But there's also something in therapy called psychoeducation. So we have to psychoeducate, as you're doing here and as you're doing your pages and all that type of thing. We have to continue to put out information that challenges the information they believe.
Yeah.
We have to ask them to check or reality test their beliefs. We have to continue to do that. Like all people, when they come to some information that is in conflict with the information they currently have, they go through what they call resistance or cognitive dissonance or what have you. So basically, we have to continue to do what we're doing. We have to do what we're doing here. And then to kind of move forward with what you were talking about, and I've been trying to conceptualize it, and people like you and Diallo and those brothers and sisters who really struggle. I'm not sure. I don't want to put any labels on you, but I do know that I appreciate those who are more quote unquote. Look, to me, honestly, I know there's a debate about Pan-Africanism and all that type of thing, but I appreciate the minds of people from all the different spheres. Culture is essential. The politic is essential. And I don't think either any of these groups that are debating within the Pan-African circles are totally void of one or the other, like they say is going on. But
Right.
I do think there are some strengths from certain segments of these Pan-African spaces. So I
Hmm.
think that I appreciate like your mind. I appreciate
Appreciate you.
the mind like a Dr. Ball, and I appreciate the mind of a those who quote unquote might, some of them might not say left leaning, but more left leaning type of look at the political, look at things from a class analysis and all that. I think that is very needed. Then there's also the culture, and culture is so essential. Like I think, for example, like Dr. And I think there's people that like kind of bridge it really well, like Dr. Amos Wilson,
Mm.
or people like even Dr. Marimba Ani,
Hmm.
or even Baba Imhotep, like people who really look at it from this revolutionary and like and quite probably like yourself and all, like look at the essentialness of culture
Hmm.
and the class political. Like yeah, I think that I don't know how I got here, but nonetheless, what I'm saying is, I think that we need to lean on those political minds like the Davon Loves, the Leaders of Beautiful Struggle, Lawrence Grand Prix, and all those different type of brothers. I think you probably know most of these people I'm talking about, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So like look at these things, but also look at those people like that really say this from a psychological standpoint. Most of those people are more like the cultural, because culture is so significant.
Yes.
And what we seeing being played out before us is a lack thereof,
Mm.
because that is what that goes back to what you said earlier, where when you don't really practice, when you don't have cultural responsibility, you
Hmm.
can come at your elders that way.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then just to kind of cap it off, and I've been trying to work this out in my mind, and I think Diallo said it very eloquently on the episode we had just a few, maybe last week. Um, that the like NATO and the EU and all these other groups are pan-Europeanism.
Yeah.
So the fact that there can be a pan-Europeanism is what I'm saying now, is that you believe. See, this is how I know you've given up,
Hmm.
because you know these pan-European collectives exist, but you are anti-Pan-Africanists.
Right.
Like you know that
Yeah.
America is a part of these collectives.
Right.
But you don't think a Pan Africanist collective could exist?
Right.
Like it's not like no one's doing this.
Right.
Like white people are doing it. To me, it is saying somewhere deep down, maybe not so deep for some of us, because we got some serious assimilationists and self hatred.
Yeah.
But deep down, even if you don't know it, you believe black people are inferior to white people.
Yes. Yep. I agree, and I'm glad you brought up culture, because, as you also mentioned, Marimba Ani, she said, our culture is our immune system,
Mm-hmm.
and culturally, these people are trying to. They don't see a distinct culture of African American culture or Black culture or African culture.
Mm-hmm.
Then they don't see that culture being distinct from. Um, well, they don't see their culture being distinct. I mean, distinct from American culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see
Mm-hmm.
themselves as straight up Americans, and that's why they like to throw that term that they just learned last week out, ethnogenesis, often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, and but yeah, so I'm glad you said that. But even then, right? You mentioned earlier, your training in psychotherapy and all of this stuff. But what about, you also mentioned spirituality? You mentioned that is part of your training. Are we spiritually sick as a people? In your opinion, for us to be able to, like, meaning I have Christian brothers, Muslim brothers, people with African traditional religions, Nation of Islam, more science. All of these different people, watch the show, and I have respect for
Mm-hmm.
them. But when I'm saying spiritually sick, I'm not necessarily talking about what their religion is. I'm talking about, I guess, what we would consider culture, right? Are they spirituality and culturally? Would you say that we are like the people that we are somewhat culturally sick right now, which makes it, I guess, easier for those who have that infliction to fall for these types of organizations. Because at the end of the day, Tariq Nasheed is not a scholar. He's not anyone who's been. We don't put him on. I mean, he's not like Dr. John Henry Clark or Amos Wilson or Harold Cruz or Malcolm X. All of these great, Dr. Huey P. Newton. All of these great thinkers and theorists that we have had, right? So, what is it about the people who fall for these types of grifts? What makes them susceptible to falling for it?
So again, they are operating out of a place of fear.
Yeah.
And when you're operating out of a place of fear and also being fed fear by the same person is a cultic type of personality. Is a cult type person is a cult type of personality. And so what cult leaders and demagogues do, they typically feed you the fear and also say they have the and they also have the answer.
Yeah, they got the remedy. They give you the disease and they got the cure already, right?
So it's playing on the trauma that already exists. And that trauma existed again, we go back to post-traumatic slave syndrome for just the sake of this conversation. And then we find ourselves in a place where we're struggling with identity, and people who experience trauma on any level, whether that is group trauma or individual trauma, they struggle with identity. They ask questions like, "Who am I?" They don't ever feel complete. They will jump from one thing to the other thing to the other thing. One day, speaking to our brothers and sisters that listen and follow you. They'll be, but we all know that there'll be a brother who's Christian one day and is extremely, let's say, to the right with it, or then he'll be Muslim the next day and extreme. I'm saying when I say extreme, he'll be extremist with anything that he does.
Yes,
they'll jump from one organization to one ideological understanding to another, and they'll be the most extreme in it all.
Right.
Because the hurt and pain that they have has them, and I'm tying it all together I come from an African-centered lens, so I see it's all connected anyway. And I think that, so what happens is spirituality, there's no separation between what is spiritual in a real sense what is psychological. And so, in fact, from an African-centered perspective, at the core of your psyche is your spirit. And for Black people and African people, what we say is that if you're not dealing with the spirit or the spiritual nature of them, then you're not really dealing with us. So when we look at things, if we just look at Mayat or something like, so when I look at Mayat, I'm talking about balance, right? And when we're looking at psychology or anything like that, or diagnosing people, we understand that they're out of balance. And when people are out of balance, it makes them susceptible to all types of grifts.
Yeah.
And because they also struggle with identity, and they also struggle with they also many times desire someone who will protect them. When we can go back to more of the developmental, we can talk about people's attachment systems.
Right.
And when we talk about a person's attachment, lots of times they struggle with attachment figures in their lives. And when you struggle with attachment figures in your lives, many times you develop somewhat like of an oppositional defiant type of disposition. And they say that stop at the age of children, but I know that it doesn't stop there. Grown men and women are walking around with opposition defiant and what actually develops into more of like a personality disorder.
Right.
And what you're dealing with is people who are so that really need someone to speak for them. The same people join gangs. The same people join all types of things just to feel protected, because I wasn't protected when I was younger. Right. And I'm saying that these type of people gravitate to these type of movements because they are fighting, and they fight. And I don't care. I'm gonna tear all this stuff apart because no one fought for me when I was younger, so I'm going to fight. You understand that the child that was bullied from elementary school to middle school, once he got to high school, he started carrying a gun. He started doing all the different things, and he was the hardest and most vicious thing because he said, "Ain't nobody gonna punk me." Right. So and then he joined the gang, start running with the wrong crowds, doing all the things. And this is what's happening again at an adult level. People keep saying it's happening with this is the next generation doing it. I'm sorry, the people I see is older than me.
Right,
I'm 46.
Right,
and the
right.
people I'm looking at, they said this is the youth. What do you mean? The people I'm talking to, they my age or older.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying it's not no young ones that's following, and the leader ain't. I'm certain. I'm
No,
almost
but you're
sure
right.
the leader is older than me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that he's probably in his 50s. I don't know. He
Yeah.
could be in his 40s.
Probably late 40s, early 50s, I would say. But I've definitely, just like you, I have seen this is not just a thing that's affecting young folks. It's affecting folks older than us too, because I see them in these movements. It's like they want to belong to something. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like the same reason why youth would join a gang. You know what I mean? They want to belong to something. Dr. Asar, this was dope, man. I would definitely like to invite you on again sometimes. It was great talking. There's so many, more angles I would like to build on. But for those, for one, thank you for coming through. But the links will all be in the description. But can you let everybody know how to find you as well online, how to find your works, your YouTube channel, and everything?
So YouTube, TikTok, and YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram is at Dr. with Dr. Dennis Ausar. Ausar is spelled out AUSAR. Winkler, WINKLER. Dennis with 2 N's. You can find me that on most social platforms. You can also just find me on Facebook at Dennis Ausar Winkler. You can check out TNAT Holistic Wellness Center website, Temple of NAT.org. You can find me. Just Google. You can Google me.
Already.
Yeah.
No, it's a dope conversation, man. I appreciate the work that you're doing. Obviously it's super dope. I think everybody should take a look and just props to you. And until the next time, brother, I appreciate the time.
Well, can I say I appreciate you, the invite, and definitely whenever you want to bring me back, because it is so many angles we can go to. And I see that you have a layered way of thinking because you ask questions just as layered as I do. So I appreciate
honors and respect.
so I appreciate it, brother, for bringing me on. I'm ready for the next invite.
Absolutely. You have a great one, man.
All right, peace, brother.
Peace.